All right, 95.1. So last night, Carol and I went to one of these for your consideration presentations where if you're a voting member of a guild, like the Writers Guild, TV Academy, you get invited to the cast and the producers of a show will get together and talk. They'll show an episode of the show and they'll talk to you about the show. And you're supposed to feel all kind of flattered that you're part of this and you're getting insider, and that's supposed to make you vote, for the show and in the Emmys and whatever. And last night was the first one we ever went to in the Dolby Theater where they have the Oscars, so it was super deluxe, and it was a show for a show called Pose, which is the first show, fictional show at least, starring, produced by, and written by trans people. It's set in the 80s in what's called the ballroom scene, which is kind of what Madonna was taking off from when she did Vogue. It's where trans people in the 80s, I guess into the 90s, maybe even now, put on shows and try to exhibit their, finest looks. And come together in solidarity because, they're non-glamorous. It's a little bit of glamour for a couple hours a week, when often the rest of their lives are kind of wretched. And they had frickin' 8 cast members and writers on stage, and 5 of them were beautiful trans women. And
what is a trans woman?
Somebody who was born male and wants to live as a woman.
I see.
And they were beautiful and wearing skirts with that had slits all the way up, and it was they told, as a guy, you're kind of always wanting to look up skirts if you can. And even, I still wanted to look up skirts, even though I wasn't sure what I would see. But they were all happy because they'd come. Most of these, I would say that. There's, the odds are less than 1% that a trans person had a completely happy upbringing. And if you're talking about, older trans people who are in their late 20s and older, they certainly haven't had happy childhoods and young adulthoods. And
why do you suppose that is?
Well, because they get kicked out of their families, they get kicked out of their houses, they're shamed and marginalized, and one cast member comes from a background of drug abuse and sex work, maybe more than one. I think there may have been at least 2 cast members. And that's not an uncommon thing, that it's hard to make a living. There's a lot of scorn from society, and that was a running theme of last night's deal, about people just getting kicked out of spaces that should be safe for them and having to go out into the world, their childhood homes. I don't know what % of trans kids get kicked out of their houses because their parents can't deal, but I guess it's over 50%.
Can you head back? So
anyway, everybody was all kind of happy and fulfilled because they're doing the show, and they have a place in the world, and I was thinking a couple things. One is, why not let trans people be trans people? And 2, that conservatism seems in a lot of ways like a zero-sum game, that conservatives seem more worried than non-conservatives that there's a limited amount of stuff in the world, and you have to make sure you hold on to your stuff, and you have to set very strict limits as to who are the other people who can get stuff. Like, you're worried about Mexicans coming and crowding emergency rooms and taking low-paying jobs, and you're worried about marriage getting all fucked up if you let just anybody marry anybody else without regard to sexual orientation or gender. And I don't know. It makes sense that it's a conservative thing. Conservative is you want to conserve stuff, you want to keep stuff, either the way it is or just without letting standards fly out the window willy-nilly. But of course, as a liberal, I'm like, yeah, I believe that, well, you can't have a functioning economy if once income inequality gets super crazy, because you need consumers, and if a third of the population is one paycheck away from being out on the street, that doesn't make for good consumers. Anyway, you say stuff now.
Well, I think you try to paint conservatives as hard-hearted and only concerned in a greedy way, when what I've been trying to get across to you since we began is that actually the conservative way is the compassionate way. It's even the compassionate way to transgenders. Because according to the Johns Hopkins, the pioneer of transgender surgery, 40% of people getting this operation will end up suicidal. And they finally determined, after years of watching this, that what these people need is not to change their anatomy, but to see psychiatrists, because their problem is they're depressed. And if you lop off their genitals, the depression is still there, and ultimately kills 20 times more transgenders than people that aren't 20 times more than the norm. And they've even proven that the statistic doesn't change, it only changes a few percentage, 5%, if the transgender is recognizably transgender. So, meaning that the people that pass for the new sex still commit suicide. So society is not, there's no chance that society is oppressing them.
Well, hold on. For one thing, it's a tiny, tiny percentage of trans people who get the bottom surgery.
It doesn't matter.
But the deal is, like, you're like...
And wait, I wasn't quite finished, because you spoke at length. You started with this story about the Academy films. I also wanted to say that you accused me of being greedy because I don't want to let Mexicans take low-paying jobs and occupy the emergency hospitals. But that doesn't affect me at all. It affects my working-class, blue-collar, poor American. It is precisely the poor people that you were weeping about a minute ago that are being ruined by your policies.
I thought unemployment was the frickin' lowest in frickin' 40 years.
Well, Rick, no thanks to you, Rick. No thanks to the Democrats. It's because of Trump. But my point is that
Exactly.
if you, the reason that wages have not gone up very much statistically in the past 40 years, the reason that poor people are, in a way, have benefited the least in the past 40 years that their real wages by so little is because Democrats like yourself have brought in millions and millions, actually 60 million low-wage workers from around the world, and you're now bringing in hundreds of thousands of illegal aliens, all of whom are taking the jobs at the bottom and the jobs that the teenagers would take, and forcing the poor Americans, American Hispanics, American blacks, American poor people of all ethnicities, to fight like demons to get the jobs left over. You see, it's a simple matter of math.
It seems like
it's a matter of math, Rick. Let me explain. If all the jobs that are easy to get for low-skilled people are taken, then those jobs left over are even more difficult for the Americans to get. So they have to get more training and have higher degrees.
I can get paid more.
Well, the point I'm trying to make is it's harder for Americans to get good paying jobs, and wages, by the way, remain low, because we don't need to pay American citizens what American citizens are used to. The Democrats have been very generous in giving the low-wage jobs to people that will accept lower pay. So actually, it is not my conservative party's greed that brings these people in. It's your party's greed for voters. And it's not my party's lack of compassion for transgenders. It's my party's clarity about the real problem, which is that these people are depressed. And now the leading researcher in the field, the Johns Hopkins University, agrees with my point of view. Therefore, Johns Hopkins, the pioneer in all of these surgeries, the one that committed the most surgeries in the world, refuses to carry them out.
Doctor out of Pueblo has done more transgender surgery
than Johns Hopkins University?
Yep.
Okay, fine. A leading research institution, the leading research institution in the world, says that more transgenders will kill themselves. So your solution is not compassionate. It will get more of them killed.
No. All right, so let's talk about, now, if you find yourself, we know who's happy in high school, if anybody is happy in high school. At least the traditional high schools we went to in the 70s. You know, when high school was high school. It was kind of like Greece. The happy people were the jocks and the cheerleaders. At least they looked happy from afar.
Can you keep your eyes in one spot while I do your eyes?
All right, so the well-adjusted.
Turn your head this way.
The well-adjusted.
Tilted. All right, now just keep your eyes focused on one thing while you slay me with your ideas.
All right.
Turn your nose a little more toward me.
Okay. The well-adjusted.
Yes.
You know, the attractive, the blonde, the muscular, or the girls with the asses that looked good in Britannia and Dingo's jeans. They were the ones who seemed relatively happy in high school. And then the marginalized people, yeah, they're going to be fucking depressed. They're marginalized. They don't know. They don't know who they want to be, or who they want to be is so complicated. And if it were the 70s and you were trans, you know, you didn't have any examples out in pop culture to follow. So anyway, of course, trans people are going to be less happy in general, given all the stuff they have to figure out, and the general level of disapproval still in society. Yeah, of course they're going to be depressed. Mm-hmm. But whether or not they get surgery, and a very small minority of trans people get the bottom surgery, it's a huge deal. I mean, it's a huge commitment.
Tilt your head back. Okay.
So I think you're confusing depression because of being trans with depression because you got the surgery?
Well, it really doesn't matter. My point is that the only leg you have to stand on is that they were depressed because everyone was mean to them, or because they really couldn't be women. But the research is showing that they're depressed and that the surgery doesn't help.
All right, so
they kill themselves anyway.
So don't have the surgery.
No, let me finish my point, Rick. The research is showing that since they kill themselves anyway, the solution is not turning men into women. The solution is to get these people treated for the depression that they need. And by the way, I maintain that if somebody needs to hack off their genitals, they're probably crazy. And not treating them as if they're mentally ill is the first mistake society makes.
Yeah, but when you talk about trans people, 97, 98% of them don't mess with their genitals.
Okay, Rick.
So
I don't care.
So after they get treated for depression, regardless of whether they have their genitals worked on, do they get happier? And do they quit wanting to be the opposite gender? Because you're only talking about one tiny segment of the trans population.
I'm not talking about transvestites. A transvestite is someone that changes their clothing and physical and appearance with makeup.
Well, that's kind of an outmoded deal, because somebody who lives as the gender that they weren't born to
all right.
is trans,
period. That's a transvestite. That's a different thing from the people getting the surgery.
Yeah, but
I'm talking about people getting the surgery.
So how is that different from circumcision? I mean, skin is hacked off.
Because that's minor surgery and it's done on your baby. You don't even remember it, and it's part of a huge, long. It doesn't traumatize anybody.
Can you say it?
Circumcision doesn't traumatize anybody unless you're an anti-circumcision activist, and then you believe you've lost something precious. But really, it's a little snip that takes like a second when you're a baby and you don't even remember it.
Well, not only that, but it has a very, very minor effect on a person's sex life, and you can't compare it to actually removing the penis.
It's nothing.
The worst you could argue is that it might reduce some sensitivity on the head of the penis, and some women prefer a man that is intact, but some women don't. So it's really just it's not a big issue. It's not as big an issue as having your penis entirely removed and replaced with a constructed vagina. Okay?
All right, so let me ask you.
Yeah.
Are you okay with transvestites, people who choose to live their lives without getting surgery as the gender they weren't born as?
Well, I'm more okay. I still think that the person probably needs therapy of some kind.
You really think you're going to be able to turn somebody around? It is. And also, do you still believe that you can ungay somebody through therapy? You were a big proponent of that.
Well, my argument was this: if in California they have tried to make it illegal, I think in many states it is illegal to try to change somebody, for a psychiatrist to practice.
To therapy away the gay.
To attempt to, yeah, it's considered illegal. It's illegal. And I don't think it should be illegal. I mean, it seems to me that if
what if it doesn't frickin' work at all?
It seems to me that if you have two consenting adults, a psychiatrist and a person that doesn't want to be gay, and they decide to embark on this therapy, that's not the government's business to try to stop them.
It might be if it's a kid actually is confused or is fine being gay, and it's the parents who are pushing the kid into the therapy.
Actually, no. I think it's okay for parents to work with their kids. A parent has a right more than the state does to determine things like that.
Except if the therapy has a history of being abusive and completely ineffective.
Well, I don't say it's completely ineffective. My argument is that if 1 out of 100 works, it might be worth it for some
Wow,
people.
so you're going to make 99 and maybe all 100 kids kind of miserable.
Well, who says they're going to be miserable?
Well, look at the histories of people who go through this therapy. It's not a jolly therapy. It's not.
Well, how do you know?
Because I've read and seen the stories of people who go through the therapy. It's not like sitting with. There's a lot of shame involved, and there's a lot of. It's not sitting with a shrink and exploring your options. It's pretty brutal and coercive in a lot of cases. I don't know the statistics.
It doesn't have to be. I mean, it seems to me that you're watching movies where Christians, your most hated group, are being really mean and talking about Jesus.
Yeah, but that's who's doing it.
There are psychiatrists that will use. By the way, Freud actually believed that homosexuality was mental illness.
Yeah, but nobody likes Freud anymore.
So up until recently, up until the past couple of decades, there were medical professionals by the thousand that were attempting to perform therapy to change people's minds about whether they wanted to be gay.
So this all kind of goes back to the idea of conservatism being, well, very conservative. You want to conserve. You want everybody. You want everybody to be. You'd prefer everybody to be straight.
I think I would. Yes. Yeah. That would be fine with me. I can't make that be. I can't have that happen, and I don't. It's not a realistic outcome. But I would.
But you're okay with pushing everybody into that mold to see if they can be made to fit.
I think it would be better for. I think the homosexual would have a richer life if he ventured out into the other gender to experience
Other
that
orientation.
Yeah. No. What I'm saying is this: I think that a gay man would have a richer life if he could have a satisfying relationship with a woman and be a father to his own kids and experience what women are like. Yeah,
you think women have certain limitations.
Well, they're the children of Satan, but I also think that it's a maturing process in a human being's life to leave their own sex and go out and experience and fully appreciate the other sex. Yes, I do.
Why? It's just puss. Why can't you have a full relationship with somebody with a cock?
Well, because I think that it's a maturing process to learn how to deal with the way another kind of human being thinks, and I also think it's a maturing. It's a blessing to be able to have children with a woman, and why would that be a bad thing for a gay man if he could have that?
Because it's like living a life being slowly rubbed against sandpaper every day.
What if that's what he really wanted? In fact, I'll tell you something. I know quite a few gay men that would love to have been able to get married to a woman and have children. They just can't stomach the idea. But if they could, I think quite a few would take the opportunity.
What, you think 80%?
I don't know, but it's none of your concern to stop them. You're not being. You're not
just
being.
said that you think things would be better if everybody were straight, but 5 to 10% of the population is not straight, and now that society is more open to gay people are building entire, somewhat traditional lives and marriages and parenting relationships that have all the depth of a heterosexual
I don't think
relationship.
so. I don't think so. I think that if you are a woman and you have you share a life with a man, you're expanding yourself in a way that gives you a more fulfilling life. And I think if you're a man and you enter into the world of women, it's a maturing thing. I've changed. I've become a deeper, more well-rounded person by being with women than I would have been if I'd hung out with a bunch of dudes. And you can't deny that, Rick. That's reality. And if you're a gay man, you're going to spend your whole life hanging out with other men, and you don't really have to mature in the same way. There are things about life you'll never experience or understand.
It just seems like BS. I know a guy, one of the toughest guys I ever knew was a bouncer at a gay bar who would go to straight bars and get into shit so he could beat the fuck out of rednecks and then tell them that they got beaten up by a gay guy. This is in the 80s.
You know, Rick, that's a very impressive story.
No, but hold on, I'm not done with the fucking story.
Okay.
But he always had, I was surprised because the guy had really kind of femme boyfriends. He was going out with some guy from the Ice Capades. And I'm like, well, if you're going to be gay, why don't you be fucking gay like a pirate and date the manliest of men? And it's like, it kind of disappointed me. It's like, you know, freaking, but
I see.
What would be different? I mean, if you really need a touch of the feminine in your life, there are plenty of gay guys who are plenty feminine if that's the way you want to swing.
Yeah, I don't think it's the same, Rick.
I don't know why. Why?
Yeah, it's
because both people can stand up to piss.
You think it's the same? You think it's the same?
I think that
you think a feminine gay man is the same as a woman? You can't go out on a limb and make that distinction.
All right, here's what I
say. There's a difference.
I've had 2 girl dogs in a row. I've had Frida, right now is our current dog, and before that we had Meg. And I look at those dogs, these girl dogs, and I'm like, you know, you guys are much more dog than you are girl. Because the dogness of them seems to be more determinant of their lives as dogs than their gender. And I think that people are people regardless of gender, that people are individuals, and you can have a relationship with as much depth in whatever dimension you want, if that's what you're looking for, if you're lucky enough to find the right person, regardless of their sex or gender relative to you. And maybe even more so for gay people, because gay people have to do so much more thinking about every aspect of their frickin' lives, because it's like being left-handed except even tougher. Like you have to figure everything out. Like here's, you know, it's like, you know, like in the 50s. Imagine being gay in the 50s. Were you?
I don't think that's relevant.
Yeah, but like you have to figure so much more shit out.
Yeah, you don't have to figure out that much these days, Rick.
I'd agree that you have to figure out less. That things are, you know, that you don't have to, you know. But I think plenty of gay couples have thoughtful relationships, and there are probably plenty of.
I didn't say they didn't, Rick.
All right, yeah, but you're kind of implying that.
No, I'm saying that it is a maturing process for a man to experience women and to develop a life with a woman. It definitely matures a man and it definitely matures a woman. And being able to have your own kids is a beautiful thing. I don't see anything wrong with that. I wouldn't deny that to people that were gay. I would say, you know what, you would have a very rich life if you weren't gay. And if you decided that you didn't want to be gay, it would be all right.
But gay people have rich lives without, while being gay.
Yeah, I know, but there are things that are.
What specific?
There are things that are better and things. I think there are things that are going to be in society, but there are ideals, and I think the ideal is a family between a man and a woman with children. That is my ideal. I even think that a family with children, a married couple, a man and a woman with children, is more ideal than a man and a woman without children. I mean, I can take it as far as you want. If you want to talk about what's best, what's ideal, when you said, would it be better if there were no gays? I think it's ideal that people are heterosexual, but it's even more ideal if they get married. It's even more ideal if they have children. It's even more ideal it's even more ideal if they have more children than less. I think it's more ideal for a family to have 3 children than 1 child. More ideal to have 5 children than 3 children.
Who wants to have frickin' 5 kids?
You're missing my point.
No,
I'm saying there are things that I think are ideal. There are things that I think are better than other things.
You know, I grew up around families with a shitload of kids. We grew up in a time where people had.
This is beside the point.
Well, but it's not exact. And do you feel like an emptiness in yourself because you haven't been married?
Oh yeah, I think it would be better if I had been married, absolutely, and it would be better if I had had kids. I would be a better, more well-rounded person. I mean, but the thing is, I chose something else, and I'm happy to live with it. But my point is that we're talking about what is healthiest, what is most broadening, what's deepening, and I think being an ideal old-fashioned family is what's best. It's best for society, and it's best for the people in it.
It's easiest if you can fit into that, but I mean, that stuff's falling away.
Which is a shame.
But A, inevitable, and B, not necessarily a shame. But I mean, that is conservatism, and I gotta say, I gotta defend conservatism, because if there's no pushback against every newfangled idea, then you get a lot of goofiness.
Like cutting off your penis?
I wouldn't call that goofiness.
No, if that's not goofy, Rick, nothing is.
No, I mean, it's if you've lived as a woman to get the surgery, you need to live as the gender you want to be.
Which is also bizarre and ridiculous.
I get the feeling Rick is filibustering the elephant in the room.
All right, so you want to move on to the next thing? Sure, but I just...
Yeah, are you deliberately avoiding talking about 2 of the major defeats that the Democrats...
No, I just wanted to start off with the general principle that conservatism is kind of...
All right, this week it was proven by the Mueller investigation, of all people, a bunch of bloodthirsty Democrats that Trump...
Led by a Republican, a lifelong Republican.
In name only, who was desperate to get the president any way he could, wasted 2 years and $35 million, had hundreds of investigators. It just went on and on and on. And what did he come up with? Nothing. And I demand an apology right now, because you've been bullshitting me for 2 years saying, wait and see. Well, you know what? I'm done waiting and seeing. This is it.
Not really, because we've seen a letter that's 4 pages long that's supposed to summarize a document that I would bet, and we can have a bet if you want.
So wait, so you are still clinging desperately with your fingernails in the wall, trying at any possibility that there's something else that will save you from being wrong, Rick? Well, Rick, the Attorney General said 2 things. Here's what he said. 1, Mueller says there's no collusion with Russia.
No collusion with the Russian government. But the deal is...
Wait a minute, Rick. Are you trying to drive me insane with that one?
No,
I just want to know.
No, because the last thing I read before I came down here was an analysis of the Barr statement.
I read the Barr statement.
Okay. So
let me finish what it said. No collusion with Russia.
And the Russian government.
And he would make no... he wouldn't exonerate him on obstruction of justice, but he had no evidence for obstruction of justice, and therefore he would leave it in the hands of the Attorney General. And the Attorney General and Rod Rosenstein both decided that to exonerate Trump from obstruction of justice. So on both of the things that you've been harassing me about for 2 years, you and the Democrats were dead wrong.
No, let's just, I've been saying wait and see for 2
Okay,
years.
well, this is it now, Rick.
Is it? Because...
Yes, this is it.
No, because we've seen a summary by a guy who's a pretty staunch Republican. Are you okay with releasing the entire Mueller report?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so we agree on that.
But the thing is that the Democrats have a catch-22 there because there's some stuff that's classified.
Yeah.
And there's some stuff that was revealed in a grand jury, and you can't reveal things from grand juries. So, so if there's one document that they can't release, the Democrats are going to say, aha, it hasn't been total.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm assuming the Manafort sentencing report all by itself was 800 pages. So I'm assuming that the Mueller report is 2,000 pages. At least, right? It's got to be.
I don't know the number.
Fucking dozens of attorneys, FBI agents, working for 675 days.
None of which you will accept the results of.
Well,
if it didn't go your way, you don't accept it. You're still hoping.
No, I mean,
when does a sane man say it's over?
When we see as much of the report as can be.
But the Mueller himself summarized there is no evidence of collusion with Russia. He said it. I can read it to you. It's very short. It's only 4 pages.
We should read the passage.
Yeah, sure. Let's get it out. Stop the camera.
Let's break and we'll get the whole thing. 95.2. One quick thing before we get back to the Mueller report, which is, getting older has a lot of things that suck. And appearance-wise, ear hairs and increased nose hairs are among the things that suck, except there's a certain joy in plucking ear hairs. I just was talking with somebody, and we agree that is, as far as low-level, like, grooming tasks, it's pretty pleasurable to get in there and see if you've got a hair and then try to grab it, and it's usually pretty short. And sometimes it takes like dozens and dozens and hundreds of attempts to pull out that ear hair. But when you get it, it's awesome. All right, back to the Mueller report. And it turns out it's not even 4 pages because the first page is just kind of bookkeeping and stuff. And
you're inaccurate. This is the letter from Attorney General.
Oh yeah, the summary from Barr. Yeah. Is not even 4 pages. It's 3 pages.
Okay. Summarizing
a document that is likely over 1,000 pages and probably even over 2,000 pages. And the phrase that liberals and the liberal media have focused on is the special counsel, Mueller, states that while this report does not conclude that the president committed a crime, it also does not exonerate him. So in other words, Mueller is kind of passing the ball to other people to decide whether there's actionable stuff. He's saying it's not up to me to decide here's the evidence, and it's not up to me to say whether a crime was committed or not. Now, maybe if the evidence were stronger, Mueller would have said, yeah, this is, but we don't know. And so that's where I think we want to see what the actual report says.
Well, The problem with your theory, though, Rick, is that in leaving it up to the Attorney General, Barr, and Deputy Rosenstein, what he was saying was, you read the report and you be the judge.
Yeah.
And Barr and Rosenstein say that there's no cause for any further action, and that they exonerate Trump.
Hold that thought.
That's,
So I can read his exact phrase, but it says here,
Hold that thought.